some examples of Oregon sunstone. This comes from the Dust Devil Sunstone mine just outside of Plush, Oregon. Sunstone is a feldspar. It has a hardness of about 6.5 and varies a little bit from piece to piece. Some crystals seem to be a little bit more intact than others. And what we've got is actually several different colors. Some of these show a little bit of red and green. This big piece has kind of a light champagne color, but has some really nice schiller that you can see reflecting within the gemstone. Schiller is little tiny droplets of copper, and the presence of copper as the sunstone is in formation. And when you get large enough droplets of copper and the parts per million is high enough, they actually will align themselves with the cleavage plane of the stone, and tilting it just the right way, you'll get a nice reflection of light off of the schiller. And most of the really nice sunstone comes from the Dust Devil Sunstone mine. Some of the biggest pieces, in fact the three largest carvings in existence, is material that has actually come from the Sunstone, the Dust Devil Sunstone mine. So the Dust Devil is notorious for producing really nice material. This particular piece has a lot of bright schiller through the middle of the stone. It's a nice red piece. It's a very red. It's not the reddish brown in any way. The schiller that's in this piece is reflecting a little bit more of a goldish cast, which in recent analysis people have discovered that it actually has a little bit of gold content to it. So this piece might very well have some gold, traces of gold within the schiller itself. So it'd be an absolutely stunning gemstone. What we're going to do first is take a look at these pieces of sunstone and try to evaluate them. We're going to look for things like the cleavage plane of the sunstone, which could be important in how we cut it. We're going to look for internal inclusions within the sunstone and try to avoid those in whatever we decide to do with it. In a larger piece like this, which is 276 carats, we're going to look to see the fractures that it does have, how best we can dance around those and come up with the best single piece, maybe even take a piece off of this one to use as a faceted stone. These smaller pieces we'll be looking to try to see inside the stone a little bit better. And this piece in particular, we're going to attempt to do a carving. It's got a little fracture that you can see from the outside, but we're going to be looking as close as we can internally. And to do that, I use wintergreen oil, or people can use baby oil if you want. You don't have to have the real complicated, dangerous chemicals like refractol for sunstone. Refractive index of wintergreen oil, which you can usually get at the drugstore, is close enough that it makes the stone almost transparent. Baby oil as well. We just immerse the stone, bring it as close to the side as we possibly can. And most of the fractures and problems around the outside of the stone then become transparent, and you can look inside the stone a little bit better. This stone looks like we can probably take off a little bit of the fractured area on the outside and have pretty much most of the meat of the stone intact for the carving. And it's a very nice red. You can also get a little bit better look at the schiller within the stones, because you'll want to see how light reflects off of those. That's important in how you orient the stone for cutting. On the outside of the stone may be that rough, crusty material just from the matrix. This is a piece of rough sunstone that shows a seam of the crystallization through the middle here, and you can see it's just solid volcanic rock. Sometimes you'll have to grind that off before you actually immerse it to look into the stones. These stones happen to be fairly clean internally. Take this stone for example. It has a lot of nice bright schiller. Initially we can identify a cleavage plane because it's already began to cleave. And you want to make sure if we're going to use this for a cab that you orient that parallel to the top of the stone. The axis that you're looking for is perpendicular to that cleavage plane. You'll get the very best effect doing it that way. This stone looks like it has quite a few internal inclusions, so it's really important to immerse them ahead of time, or you'll end up being halfway in the middle of a project only to discover that the stone really isn't a good candidate for cutting into a cab. And the way this piece is looking, it's got quite a few internal fractures, and unfortunately they bisect right through the middle of the stone. So I don't know that it would be a candidate for trying to keep it as an intact piece. At best, you could probably saw it in half and get a small cab out of one section of it, or it's got nice bright Schiller. You can just choose to keep it as a mineral specimen. You want to make sure you have an absorbent paper towel nearby just to clean off some of the excess. The good thing about wintergreen oil is it doesn't bother your skin. You can actually rub it on as a liniment. This piece is a little bit thin, but it also helps give you a lot of good transparency. You can look within the stone real well. This one doesn't seem to have any fractures that bisect the middle of the stone, but it's a relatively thin stone. So you're trying to find a blocky piece of material usually for faceted stones. This stone is probably a little bit more of a candidate for carving if you wanted to keep it intact, or you can actually separate a section out of the middle of it and come up with a fairly large size faceted stone. And that might actually be the direction that we go with this one, because it's a very clean stone. It doesn't have a lot of Schiller. Schiller does affect the brilliance of a gemstone. What you are looking for there is, if you have Schiller that's perpendicular to the table of the stone, you're going to get reflections off of the Schiller. If you orient the Schiller perpendicular to the table of the stone, you can, in a sense, sometimes cut out the Schiller where you don't see the Schiller. However, the Schiller does act much like the filter on the end of a camera lens, and it does block and filter out some of the light. So those stones have a tendency to be just a little bit duller than stones that don't have Schiller. So this stone is a very good candidate. And I think probably what we would do here is cut the clear section off and isolate as much as we can this red area here, and try to get as large a faceted gemstone as we possibly can out of that one. This 276 carat stone has a lot of potential to keep as an intact stone. You can obviously see all the way through the stone, and it does have a nice bright Schiller through the middle of it. It doesn't have a whole lot of color to the material itself, but it has a beautiful Schiller, reflective Schiller. So we've already got one side somewhat polished off and pre-sanded just so we can get a little bit better look into that end of it. And you don't always have to immerse the stone. Sometimes a bigger stone like this, if it doesn't fit in your little jar, you can just rub a little bit of the oil around the outside of the stone and you can get a little bit better look. There's a real nice bar of Schiller through the middle of it that's showing up in this top camera. So we can identify that as the cleavage plane of the stone, because the cleavage plane will be parallel to the Schiller. And rubbing it around the outside, we've got what looks like one large fracture that goes through this section. And so it looks like from this point outward we'll have to slice that piece of the stone off. And it's still a good candidate. It's a nice clean piece. It's still a good candidate for doing some kind of faceted gemstone, or actually an additional gemstone carving that perhaps will accent what we do with this larger piece. So having looked at this piece a little bit better, some of the first things that I can see we need to take off. The outside layer here is approximately 1/8 of an inch thick. It's got a lot of inclusions in it, but just beneath that is nice clean material. So the first thing we'll do is we'll rough out the piece of rock and take off some of the excess stuff that looks a little bit bad. We'll round off some of these corners that we're not going to want in the gemstone to begin with, and then take another reevaluation of the piece, getting rid of as many of the major inclusions as we possibly can, and leaving us with as gemmy a piece of material to work with.
So hopefully we'll make a treasure that somebody can pass on from generation to generation. This is a rare privilege to be able to carve one this size.
Been a lot of question about the grading system for Oregon Sunstone. It is a rather difficult stone to grade because there's so many different variations. In working with gemologists and appraisers, we have fine-tuned the grading system. My name's Don Buford. I'm one of the owners of Dust Devil Mining Company. This is my 20th year in the high Oregon desert mining Oregon Sunstone. Terry Clark and Steve Hackler, who are two of my partners, sat down with the first major parcel of stones that we had cut and developed a grading system because there was no grading system for Oregon Sunstone. We were very, very critical of the stones and came up with 4 different categories for red or red-green bicolor, and 3 different categories for pink Schiller. Today I'm going to give some examples of the variations and how I determine what grade they are. When grading these stones, first of all, you deal with the quality of the stone, the saturation of color, the amount of Schiller or lack of Schiller in the stone, and the artist who did the stone. The simplest, of course, is the champagnes, which have just a very, very pale yellow color. We call them clears. The little bit of yellow is caused by minute quantities of iron, and some of them will have a very, very small amount of copper in it called pink Schiller. The next grade that we would have would be the A-grade Schiller, which the Schiller is the copper platelets that lie between the lattices. An A-grade Schiller is one that has a lot of copper in it, but is not a real bright stone. They're pretty, but they don't have a lot of flash to them. The double A Schiller is a little bit brighter stone, but may have a little bit of zoning or some problem that would keep it from being a higher grade stone. Zoned stone is a stone that has color over most of the stone, but as you look at it and turn it slightly, you may see that there's a clear spot in it. It may be that you see it face up, or you may have to tip the stone a little bit. Zoning will lower a stone grade by at least 1 grade and possibly more depending on how bad it is. This stone, this red-green bicolor, is a zoned stone, and that would lower the value of this stone because it has clear stone in it. This stone is a high dome cabochon. It is a very, very well done stone. It's a AAA, and that would be the best of what Schiller comes in. The stone here is another freeform cabochon, and it's got red, green, and pink Schiller bars in it. This is a very, very rare combination, and in a very, very well done stone, I would place this at the 4A level on cabochons. Generally speaking, cabochons like this one or carvings like this one will sell for 60% of the price that a faceted stone would sell. However, a unique stone like this or this would sell at the same price that a faceted stone would sell. This piece is a AAA Schiller, and on the inside of it there is fit a 3A red. Schiller is the least expensive of our colored stones, but the size of this stone makes it very unique, and the fact that it's carved into a flower with a red center makes it even more unique. This stone would be in the 3A Schiller range plus the 3A red range, which would make it a high-grade stone. And because this was done by one of the top gemstone artists in the world, it would add value to it because of the artist. This is something that is fairly new to the gemstone world, where people are doing very unusual stones. The appraisers are starting to say that you need to put the name of the artist down with the stone, and that it'll be more valuable if the artist has won a lot of competitions, the same as a painting by Picasso would be worth a lot more than a painting that somebody copied. We then go into the reds, and we have the A red, which may have some Schiller in it, but the color is predominantly red. The saturation will be less than the higher grade stones, and it will have pretty good flash to it, but won't be a super bright stone. The double A reds, this one is a double A bicolor, but what you're seeing is the red. The double A will be a stone that has a little bit better saturation of color, meaning the redder the stone, the better, as long as it has some clarity to it. The Schiller is something that has some effect on the stone, but not a negative effect. A triple A red or bicolor or green is a very, very well saturated stone, has very good color, is a well cut stone, and doesn't have any zoning. It could possibly have a little bit of Schiller in it if that Schiller makes the stone more attractive and more unique. Over here we have some examples. Here is a red-green bicolor, and all green Oregon sunstones are dichroic. That means that the same spot of color in the stone will be green on one axis, it will be red on one axis, and the third axis can be either red or green. If the third axis is pink, then it's called trichroic. This is a very, very rare phenomena that very few stones in the world display. The other thing about these red and green stones is that if cut properly, they sometimes will color change just like good alexandrite. In the red category, we have a 4A red, which is perfect red color and no zoning whatsoever, perfectly cut, and may have a Schiller bar or feather that runs across the table of the stone that actually makes it a prettier stone than it would be otherwise. A well-cut 4A red sunstone will look like it has a light inside of it glowing out. After we came up with this grading system, a publication called The Guide, which keeps track of wholesale prices for gemstones all over the world, used our system for appraising stones and setting a value on wholesale stones. Once you've had a stone appraised, if you don't believe that the appraiser was correct in their appraisal, you can send the stone to Carla Proud at Exotic Gemstones or to me at Dust Devil Mining Company, and we will look over the appraisal and determine whether it was done correctly or not. We will do that for free once you've had an appraisal done, and only charge you for the shipping and insurance for getting the stone to us and back to you.
When we first began, everyone who came to our booth, we explained what Oregon Sunstone was. Today, we no longer have to explain. Popularity is worldwide. Since 1996, we've worked with artists in North America to enter the AGTA Cutting Edge competition, and we're very pleased to say that since 1996 this material has won 16 Cutting Edge awards.
Hello, my name's Dalan Hargrave. I'm here at the Dust Devil Mine in southeastern Oregon. It's a wonderful place to come to, nice, friendly, family environment where you can come and they treat you like they're their brother. And we come down here in the pit and dig through the dirt and sift through a few things and find a few nice sunstones to work up into gemstones for jewelry.
The artists love this stone because it can be done anything to it. It can be carved, it can be made into cabochons, and it can be faceted. This piece, for instance, is the largest sunstone, Oregon sunstone, ever found. It originally was 1,098 carats, and now it's this beautiful carved rose by Dalan Hargrave. The stone itself is 650 carats finished. One other thing that's unique with the Oregon sunstone is that it can be cast in place and it can be fired in place. So it's a perfect stone for those people who work in precious metal clay to work with. Dust Devil Mining established the grading chart, and we worked to establish a pricing system for them. Oregon sunstone comes in an array of colors from clear to the deepest reds and greens. And the majority of our material is clear or pink or light red. That's 75% of the material we find. And those, of course, the clears start at about $15 a carat. However, the high-end deep reds and deep greens, only about 0.1% of what we find are those colors, and we consider those collector colors, and they can start as low as $250 a carat, and we have had one piece appraised that was about $7,500 a carat. We're Dust Devil Mining Company. We've been mining for 19 years. The Oregon Sunstone was first traded by the Native Americans, and it's been mined since the early 1900s. We are in the high desert. It's in southeastern Oregon. We're elevation at 4,700 feet. The nearest pavement is about 20 miles away. We bring in our drinking water from 30 miles away, our mining water from 8 miles. And we are a very green company in mining. We recycle our water. We haul all recycling out 130 miles to the nearest recycling center. We work closely with the Bureau of Land Management on new reclamation techniques for the range, because everything we disturb we have to put back to the natural contours and the natural plants of the area. We've been mining the same 2-acre area for 10 years, and we currently have 800 acres under claim, so I'm not sure that we're going to see it run out in anyone's lifetime. Picture is much brighter for Oregon Sunstone these days because andesite has been uncovered for what it is, a colored material, not a natural material. Everyone is buying sunstones these days. They're looking for material that's all American and all natural.
work in gemstones, bronze, and other precious stones, as well as wood carving. And what I have here today is primarily bronze with a little bit of stone. Bronze is primarily made from a clay original, and a mold is made and cast similar to lost wax method that you use in jewelry, except on a large scale. And then we clean it up and put the coloration, which is called a patina. And this particular patina is a silver nitrate patina to make it kind of look like a granite stone. I was invited 15 years ago to show with the Dust Devil Mining Company and to show with the Germans. And so, you know, the rest is history. I've been here and it's been a good show and meet a lot of neat people. And this is the Sonoran Sunset Stone that came out of Sonoran, Mexico last year. And it is from a copper mine from Mexico, and it has all the copper derivatives, the cupric and cuprite and hematite stone. And I created an octopus in the stone. I met Don 16, 17 years ago, and he had handed me a rough piece of stone, which was probably 100 and some carats, which I carved into a piece that's called Hearts and Roses. The coloration and observing them with the light change and seeing how you can use the Schiller part with the other colors. Hearts and Roses happens to be a red heart outlined in green, and the roses part is their pink Schiller, so the division on that stone was perfect. It's fun to sit and study and get the light to reflect through it where you get the best design for the stone, and the chatoyancy of it is just something that's very exciting.
We have had a great show. In fact, in the last year was our best Tucson ever. And I'm really pleased to say that, even with a recession, people really related to the gem, and I've been very pleased with this show as well. I am sharing my passion for working with Sunstone, with Oregon Sunstone from the Dust Devil Mine. I love working with Sunstone. I've been a jewelry designer for 40 years. The Sunstone has a lot of variety of color. We have stones, faceted stones, beads, cabochons, carvings. It's a versatile gem. I've designed jewelry in white gold with diamonds. I like working with jaspers and other natural gems that work well with Sunstone. I'm wearing a fossil palmwood piece, and I've accented it with a cabochon of Schiller Sunstone. The colors work well together. It combines nature with this beauty of the gem. I've worked with Oregon Sunstone with rose gold, yellow gold, white gold, designed a line of sterling silver, designed carved beads. I'm doing really what I love and what I've been doing for the last 40 years, except I'm focused on this gem. All the sunstone that I work with is plush sunstone, and it's mined at the Dust Devil mine, which is in the Oregon outback. In fact, just as an aside, I was in Honolulu for 25 years where I owned fine jewelry stores, did custom design, and started selling sunstone from Dust Devil and introducing it to the market in Hawaii and also at my store in Japan, in Tokyo. And was so enamored that my husband and I left Hawaii totally and moved to Bend, Oregon to be closer to the mine so I could enjoy that part of it. I actually go out to the mine and dig the material, and I get to share that and love living in Oregon. This stone is totally 100% natural. I don't think there's anything you could do to enhance the beauty of them. They are beautiful the way they are. It would be a travesty to do anything to change them. The colors are actually a color range that I call champagne, which is a clear light yellow. We cut them in a concave faceted style, and those have been very popular. Even though they're the more common sunstone, when they're cut well, they're very beautiful. I sell those really well to people who know nothing about the gem and just love the beauty of it. The next color is pink Schiller, and the stones are have natural copper inclusions in them, which is a positive inclusion. And in some of the gems, which we call Schiller, you can actually see a play of movement with the Schiller copper in the stone. Very beautiful. And then we have light greens, pale peachy reds, some bicolors, which I love, and my customers very much love. Retail customers really gravitate to the bicolor gems with the green and the peach combined. Beautiful color. The various rarest gems are a blood pure super red, which we find very few of, which makes them very precious. I've designed a line of jewelry with the champagne sunstone, what I call champagne. Very well premium cut, premium gem cutting. Simple, it's all about the stone. In fact, most of my designs are more about the stone than the design. It's really to showcase the gem. I have found that people who don't really know about the stone really gravitate to these beautiful champagnes, and I've been able to, since they are more prevalent, we're able to cut large stones with fabulous impact. So as a designer and as someone wearing the gem, these are really beautiful. The sunstones well, I'll give you an idea. In my jewelry collections, which I design in sterling silver, the sunstone and pearl collection, into all the golds. Sterling silver pieces retail from $90 with a natural American gem. You can start at $90 for a retail purchase, up to several $100s. In gold, from $300 to several $1,000s, depending again on the gold, as well as on the color and size and clarity of the gemstone. It's natural, it's all American. All my jewelry is made in the US. It looks beautiful on you. It looks beautiful on everyone. Enjoy.
Hello, my name is Dalan Hargrave. I'm here at the Dust Devil Sunstone mine, where we find a beautiful gem sunstone. It's a feldspar. It often has nice little bars of Schiller with little copper flakes and platelets that reflect the light. You can find beautiful red color sunstone, you can find green sunstone, you can find red sunstone in the middle with just a little bit of green around the outside of that. We call that watermelon sunstone. For this series, we're going to be looking at several different projects. We're going to do cabochons, similar to little round ones that we have here in the tray. We've got a nice diamond-shaped cab. We'll talk about the different stages to just make a nice, well-shaped cab and orient the sunstone and the Schiller properly. Then we'll actually do a little free-shaped carving where we have just a few graceful lines, very simple carving that anybody can do in their shop with minimal equipment. And we'll once again talk about how to orient that in that project, orient the Schiller and orient the color so that it faces up properly. And then also in the series we'll get into a little bit more in-depth project where we take a larger piece of sunstone and actually trim it, whittle it down to the nice blocky piece of material with no imperfections, and discuss a little bit of the design and how we arrive at the design for the piece. We'll do a little bit of a floral design for this piece, and then in another project we'll discuss cutting a little round sunstone that we'll actually use for the centerpiece of this floral display. This is a rare privilege to be able to carve one this size, and I'm looking forward to taking this back to the studio and see what we can make of this. Hopefully we'll make a treasure that somebody can pass on from generation to generation. So let's head to the studio and see what we can make of it.